So, okay. Okay, since many of you already have reviewed and are working on the assignment, I just would like to review some stuff very quickly, and then mainly advance further and answer your question so you can complete this assignment and in the week which remains. This is the last week of the semester, believe it or not. Can you go to slide number 4? No, that's 5, 4. Okay. So very quickly, you already have reviewed everything which is in the classroom. And regarding this last module, which is AI, cognitive computing, and how it wraps in the big data white picture. So there are many readings, and the practical application we are doing is the simplest one, which is achievable in 3 weeks, which is actually the most hyped today, which is Chatbot. As you know, as a user, we transition from web interface to mobile interface, and today we live in the Chatbot interface. It just has impulse like a preferred one, and it was possible because of simultaneously advancement of the technology and the customer preferences, starting with Facebook Messenger, which customer prefer even more than the social network itself. And by the other hand, the advancement of natural language processing and cognitive computing, which made possible the main purpose of what is Chatbot. Chatbot existed for 20 years, let's put it this way. Why today they are on the top and let's say widespread in every place, in any industry, in any application, in any service? Because the industry, the technology has advanced with the natural language processing, cognitive computing, and they can just understand the natural language and possess some intelligence to understand the customer intent, of course, in certain contexts. As you see in the slide, I parsed and bolded the most important key point we are talking about, and we have to keep these key points simultaneously. So when we talk today about the chatbot, we're talking about some conversational and intelligence response in some domain context, not in general. Domain context, that means that this software, which is the chatbot software, has understanding and intelligence in certain domain. And this is possible by the advancement today of the cognitive computing. And the very important characteristic of the chatbots today, with the advancement 20 years, is interaction with the user, understanding the user, what is the user intent, asking probing question until the chatbot actually can give recommendation or whatever is expected to do from the chatbot. At the end of the day, the chatbot has to solve specific certain problem. Without solving problem, either it is recommendation or any other solution, we do not have all component of what we understand about chatbot. And today you can find this by different name, digital assistant, and so on and on. If you see the general term of bot, keep in mind, this is not the same like chatbot, it's more overarching term, and it doesn't have to be conversational. It can be just automatically based on some rule, on some trigger to make, to provide the solution to certain problems. So we are talking about not exactly the same thing. When we talk about chatbot, we must have a conversation, we must have intelligence in certain domain in order to solve a problem which is from the user interest. And of course, as you saw, next slide, Elena. As you saw in the previous recording, there are many use cases. I'm not going to stay on them again. Go to the next slide, please. And what I want to talk about a little is the benefits. The chatbot, with all the parsing in the definition in the first slide I showed, it has to be benefits for the business. Without this component, we are not talking about any useful thing. And here in this very nice way to wrap up the different kind of benefits the chatbot may have for the business, you can see it can range for improving user experience, simplifying purchase, personalized service, which I think many of us are using today, starting with receiving news and many different personalized service based on our preferences. Of course, you understand that just talking about personalized services, we can spend at least 30 minutes and talk in depth what we are talking about. The purpose here is that you understand that chatbot can be in any of the area and provide something useful for the business and has business value. The other important point of this is that all these, let's say, natural language understanding services and cognitive services have advanced so much, and they are offered by different providers today in very accessible price. And you don't have to think about Sephora or any big, let's say, big company that has resources to use this technology. Even a single business, small business can use, if you see the prices in the cloud of these services, you can make the calculation that actually this is affordable. And that is the other key point I wanted to point today, that this is not just a hype. The chatbot are today inviting our life the same way it was before web interface. So, and this is because they are already offered at very feasible price, which makes sense to any business to make advantage of them and to create better product, better service, and take competitive advantage. So with no more, we can proceed to the next point, which has to do with Q&A. And starting with Q&A, we can talk about very few things Elena want to focus, let's say, in different way.
Oh, yeah, this slide right here.
Yes.
Well, yes, there have been things that we have been repeating, and we're going to repeat again. Some of you may have been contacted by instructor that you need to get a new code, right, and update, and you need to obtain the new promo code and apply, right, because some of you have your account expiration date on in November, right? You had about 1 week remaining, so make sure that you have sufficient number of days, right, remaining. Now, this is a big no-no. If any of you enter credit card, we're not going to be able to help you anymore. Okay, so do not submit any tickets unless we instruct you to. Do not deactivate your account. Okay, so now if you have not done so already, too bad, but you need to complete the chatbot self-assessment in the course content. Okay, now if you notice that the walkthrough has required exercises, even though you're not going to be graded, you have to do the exercises because for instance, you cannot work on page 22 until exercise 4 on page 20 is done. Okay, because that page is referring to something that's done as part of the exercise. Now, the chatbot that you develop for your actual graded assignment it has to be your original work, right? So we don't want to see something copied from somewhere. Or you're not going to get credit if you submit the Mr. Code for grading, you're not gonna get credit if you submit the Mr. BMI for grading, okay? You want to pay attention to assignment deliverables. Like for example, if it says that you need to submit 2 files, right? 2 files, all of us can count until 2. There should be 2 files in assignment folder, right? That's a thing. Now, if you delete something, you cannot undelete, right? Anything you delete is gonna be gone forever. No. And this is very important, guys. The only mistake you can make is not asking for help. When you don't ask for help, this is a big mistake. Now let me see, did somebody post something in the chat? I cannot see it.
We already started with question in the chat. I see the first question. I can read for you, Elena.
Yes, about the handlers. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so basically what you
But
have...
finish this slide and then move to the question.
Okay, okay. Now, basically the slide is talking about what not to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, and I had some questions about the assignment requirements. Well, back when I was a student, this is what I did. I printed the requirements that have that page that has a rubric and the page that tells you what the paper needs to include. And what I did was I checked my paper against those requirements. For example, if the paper says, if the requirements say discuss the limitation of the study, I ask myself, am I discussing the limitation of the study? Yes, and then I make a check mark. So that's basically, that's what I did. And, you know, I almost never missed something important. And I'm just telling you the secret of success, okay? So just make sure you can print it and look it as a checklist, right? So basically the requirement is a minimum that you need to have done. And if you have that minimum, then you get at least 80%. There's no guarantee, but if you meet that minimum, you're gonna get at least 80%. Okay? So now we're gonna get back to the handlers. Well, I realize that this is a very it's a little bit tough topic. So let me go back to my chatbot. So here it is. This is a Mr. BMI that I showed you in the last demonstration. So if I go back to the dialogue as an example, over here I had something about the blood pressure, right? This is something about the blood pressure. It's gonna ask me about the systolic reading, right? It's gonna start by asking me about the systolic reading. Well, maybe I don't understand what it is talking about. So one of my handlers could be something like help me, okay? So the whole idea here is that I'm still in a slot, but it's something like a side question that the bot can answer and then return back to the flow. So I can say, hey, can you clarify, please, right? And then it's asking me back to enter the blood pressure. So let me show you what I mean. Let's go to the try it out, right? And I'm gonna say something, oops, come on. It's caution, as you notice that. So I'm gonna say something like this. What? I'm gonna say my blood pressure, right? So now it's asking me to enter the systolic blood pressure reading. And suppose that I don't understand and I'm gonna try help. This is what it's gonna do. The handler is gonna type blood pressure is a strength at which the blood is pushed into vessels, okay? So now it's back. It's asking me enter your systolic blood pressure. In other words, I did not go anywhere from a conversation. I'm still here, but it's a side question that I want the chatbot to take care of, okay? So this is a side question. That's one use. Another use is that if I want to exit, the handler could allow me to exit the slot. So let me give you an example here. Okay, suppose that I'm very tired and I don't want to continue with this. I can type this, I can type exit instead of answering the question. And that's it. Sounds like you want to quit. Thank you for using BMI application. Have a nice Tuesday. So Tuesday is today's date, right? It's picking up. Anyway, so this is a handler. It kind of like it could handle the side requests, or it could allow me to exit the slot. Well, usually you exit the slot when this condition is met, right? In this case, the slot is trying to pick up a number, but handlers allow me to handle side questions or to basically jump from the conversation. It could be either exiting the slot, specific slot, but continuing to respond, right? Or it could be quit. But here I had to do something else. Well, I'll show you what I did here. See this? I'm gonna go to the edit. Oops, that's not what I want. I want to show you the handlers. So if it catches the explain intent, it's going to respond with this. And if it catches the goodbye intent, this is a response, but there is more. What I'm doing is that I'm setting the systolic and diastolic blood pressure to -1, right? So this is what I'm doing. And then I'm skipping back to the response, all right? Skip to the response. And then in here, oops, what is this? Oh, discard the changes. And when I'm going back to here, see this, the first thing I'm checking is that if this is -1, and if it is, then I'm gonna leave. So basically in the handler, I did something, what do you call it? Outside the box type of thinking. I made it exit the slot, right? Or I could do something like a side request, yeah. Well, digressions are more advanced. It's when you can temporarily move away from the certain point of conversation. I could ultimately implement this as a digression.
Yeah,
I could, yes?
Can I ask a question while you're in that screen?
Yes.
Can you scroll a little bit down?
Yes.
So you have a jump at the final. So it is jumping into the final section. Is that what it is? The jump right there?
Well, basically, well, there is more going on in here. Well, let me show you what's going on. Each response is different. There are several occasions when I want to quit, and I want to quit if if the person wants to quit. Another situation is when I believe that the person could be in danger, like if you have the very, very high blood pressure, it's about above 180, the upper reading, or 100, above 120, your lower reading, right? So they have a crisis, you have to see the doctor. But this is what I do here. Take a look at this. This is a systolic and diastolic if they're below 0. And remember, I'm using -1 as a dummy value. So let's see what it's this here. For each response, it's telling me what to do next. So here, I want to go to the goodbye node, to the response.
Okay. It's jumping into goodbye there.
Yeah. And like here, well, this is blood pressure is really low. So I want to jump to goodbye in here, that's right. But on the other hand, well, here, this is a little bit elevated, so you're fine to continue. And here, I'm going to, there is another node where I show the next menu. I show the menu again, like things, anything else that you could do, right? Because
so
maybe
you can jump into different things there.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank
you can jump to, yes. Well, yeah, this is a little bit difficult to understand, so I want you to ask questions about something like this. This is more advanced, and we need you to see you doing reading the data, and yeah. So my preferred way to use handlers, but you could also use digressions, but you cannot use both. But I prefer handlers. It's just my personal preference, maybe. Okay, let's see. Did I address the question?
Yes.
Guys, let me know. Yes, this is customer service. Now, what else do we have?
Digressions.
Yes. So basically, the way the digression work is that you can temporarily jump to, like, see here, alternative way would be to suppose that it catches the explain intent while I'm in the middle of this. In here, I have a node that handles explain intent. So the goal of digression would be it would jump to this node, and then it would display the nice picture of what the blood pressure is, and then it will return to the point of conversation where we stopped. So this is an alternative way to handle this. There are two ways to handle this. I'm using handlers, but alternatively, you could use the digression. So basically the digression allows you, well, I have it turned off, but the digression allows you to, while you're in a conversation, right, it allows you to temporarily jump out to take care of another task and then return to where you were. But yeah, but if you use handlers, it will count. But the whole idea is that you want the conversation to be more flexible, right? So, like, for instance, if I don't understand what a BMI is, I want to get more information, right? I could type in help me, and then the help information will be displayed, and then I return to where I was. So that's the whole idea.
So for the requirements for the assignment, it says digression and
or
handler. So we have to use both.
Well, you can. It's up to you. But if you set up the digressions, then you cannot have handlers. So, well, the thing is, well, okay. Let's look at the big picture. The whole idea is that I should be somewhere in a conversation. I should be able to ask a side question while I'm in the middle of something, or I should be able to quit at any time, right? So I think this is probably might be the simplest one to do, is that a user should be able to exit the conversation at any time, right? Like, it's like this, like we are in a conversation and you should be able to exit. So you handle the exit perhaps in your digression. Well, handler, yeah. Well, it's similar concept, but handlers could be slightly easier to implement. Yeah.
So we don't need to use both then. We can use either one, but just one type, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes, because on the same node you can have either. You cannot turn on the handler, right?
Yeah,
So,
because in my assignment, I was trying to use both and I broke the system. So that's why I was asking you that question.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, because, well, I read the documentation as well. It says that you cannot have handlers in the node if you want to enable digression. So unfortunately, that's how it is. But either way you choose, either anything you choose, it will count.
So Ujita, you just mentioned that you broke the system. So what exactly, how did it really behave?
I'm not sure exactly how it broke, but I have a menu just like what Yelena has, and then I was trying to use handlers and digressions at the same time, probably the same node. So then I had to delete both to get back to where I was before. So I think it was in a loop, I guess.
Okay, it was an infinite loop kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, but
thank you.
Oh, I'm good that you brought that up. This is what you guys could do in the meantime to back up your work. Watch, I'm going in here and I can do download JSON. So the JSON file that I download is going to be my backup. So at any time, if I mess something up, I can always re-import my backup file, okay? So before you try something crazy, so to speak, you want to do this. Export the download the JSON file, because at any time you can go back and re-upload it, okay? So that way you have a backup. That's what I recommend. Right?
So how do you import a JSON? Can you do the importing here too?
Yes. Create new, and then you go to
okay.
Yep. This is how your work will be assessed. The JSON file that you will submit, an instructor will do this: import skills, choose JSON file, and will upload your boat file. because you'll be, as part of your grading will be the assessment of the actual bot. So basically, whoever is running the bot should be able to exit. A bot should tell its purpose, right? Well, things like that. Because if it's impossible to exit the conversation, it's a problem. Okay? Okay? So now, if you wanted to import something and you change your mind, this is how you exit from the screen. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, I think we have something else in the chat, but oh, regular expressions. Okay, the question was about the regular expressions. Okay, well, okay. I am doing, in my case, in this chatbot, I'm doing the email as an example. So let me go back here. I created an entity here. And the entity is valid. Okay, here it is, email. And I'm checking the valid email in the user's input. So this is a regular expression for email, and I got it from the documentation. Alternatively, you could do the phone numbers, right? But for the phone numbers, keep in mind that you want to check the international number as well as the local. So I created an entity here, and I called it the pattern, and this is how I defined it. Remember, when you create an entity, you have an option between synonym and pattern. Okay, so now, okay, this is the entity. Now let's take a quick look at the dialog. I have a node in here. What it does is that's called email me, right? So here, I'm checking the context. I'm checking to make sure that it's identifying the email entity in a user's input, right? So I'm going to check for email. So secretly, it's gonna try to check if my input has something that matches this pattern that I defined in a entity, right? And if not, it's gonna tell me, please enter your valid email. And in here, I have a context variable, and the variable name is email, and it's trying to pull the email, literal, right? It's trying to pull the email from the actual input. So when you have the opening bracket and a question mark, right? And then you have a question mark and the closing bracket. That means that you're reading from the input. And this is very important, you want that literal. It took me about an hour to get this to work at some point. So you have a working example here. See this is how you do, you read this literal thing, right? This is an email. Well, I can show you how that works. So here it is. I'm going back to try it out, and I'm going to, oh, I have to clear this. I have to restart this thing. And I want to do email me the information. And on purpose, let me type this. Oops, come on. XXX, and then I'm gonna put something like Elena that at yourmuc.edu, and then I'm gonna put something like this, right? And what is it gonna do is it will extract the email address. Oh, okay. Well, the problem is that I did not put a space. See that there is a little loophole in here. It saw that XXX is part of my email address, but anyhow, something like this would have been a valid email, right? It would have been a valid email in theory. So what it's doing is that it's extracting something that matches the specified expression, okay? And in the documentation, there is an example on how to do the phone numbers, okay?
So Yelena, if you don't put the @ sign, will it give you an email error message?
Where, here?
And no, like you'd say it's Elena dot your last name and at
It
sign.
should be.
So if you just type your name and
It should
what
be.
does it say?
It should be. So let's try this. Okay, email me. And what do you mean? I put this?
Just write your name. Don't do anything.
Okay, so I just delete this thing here, right? It's gonna. It should ask me to re-enter email.
Oh, okay. I guess. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's doing. It's asking me to, yes. And one thing that I forgot to do it here is that manage handlers. Well, because suppose that I want to exit, right? I should have done it in here. Well, I didn't do it in this node, but another thing that you want to do here is that you want to add response variation. So that way, if I keep on entering invalid email multiple times, it's giving me the same message. You want to display the user a different message. So you would probably want to add response variation. Okay, so it's in here somewhere. You would have to configure it. Well, first of all, you have to have it turned on, right? You have to go to customize and turn it on. Yeah, but in general, you want to ask questions, the same questions multiple ways. So that way it's less obvious that you're a robot, okay?
So I have a question. Elena, can you scroll down just a little bit down?
In here?
Yeah, right, yeah. So where, yeah, it says underneath the value, open that within the, yeah, is that where it is checking the regex?
Yes. Well,
okay.
Yes, but you have to extract, and this is just the syntax, that literal. It's checking, well, it's looking at the pattern. Usually, normally when you look for the user input, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually you just put the %, but in here, usually you just put the right? But in here you have to put literal. The reason is it's a pattern entity. It's not it's not the system entity, and it's not a synonym entity. This is a pattern entity. That's why. Yes, and you can have more than one pattern. For instance, the phone number could be the local, or it could be the international, right? Then you have two patterns.
Two patterns? How do you do that?
Well, you could have more than one value.
Or variables? Then you have to...
Well, you would have another entity.
Oh.
Like here I have the email, right? Wallet. And then you would have to probably edit this, right? You can edit this. And see this, you can add another pattern here. Yeah. Well, if this was a phone number, I could just go ahead and add another pattern. That's what it will be. And there is a documentation page where it shows several expressions, but the most common one are email and a phone number. So if you do something like this, you get it counted in your, or it could be something like a 6-digit number or something like a PIN number or anything like that. Well, it depends on your application, but you're gonna get count for this, okay? I mean, did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Well, yes, I call this customer service. So, I mean,
you're providing a great customer service.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. All right.
Elena.
Yeah.
This is Jackie. On mine, I just want them, if they enter something invalid twice, I want it to go to goodbye.
Oh, okay. Then you need a counter.
Okay.
Yes, you have to have a variable where you add one. You have to have a counter. I believe there is. I have to find an example. But whenever you have a counter, and whenever it's invalid, you have to add one. Because if you take a look at this, I do not have a counter, but it's possible to do the context something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? Is it possible? So well, but that's an excellent question. But that's another way to do this. and you'll get count if you do it this way. So let's see. Oops, no, not this. But see here, it's checking this, right? But in here, the slot is required, but I'm wondering if there is a way to view the context here. Let's see. Nope, it's not. Oh, hold on. Enable the condition. Let's see what this does. Enable the condition. Oh no, this is checking the condition. But you have to, well, the whole idea is that you would have to create something like a counter. And in the counter, whenever it's the slot is not satisfied, you're gonna add one after each iteration. Well, yes, I have not done that yet, but this is what you have to do. You have to add the counter. So let me write that down on my notes list, and I'll see if I can look at. I saw an example. I swear I saw it. So I'm gonna look up, for example, because basically, yes, that's what you normally do. You have to have a way to count, right? You have a context variable, and each time when the answer is not satisfied, you need to add one. You have to add one. Yeah.
Okay. And then my other question is, do we have to use that Visio or that diagram thing? Because I've already done my diagram, but I did it in PowerPoint.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Well, the bottom line is that you have to have some kind of like a diagram that shows the conversation flow. That's
yes, it does it.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Well, the reason I put the draw IO it's because some people don't have the Visio, but well, UMUC does provide you the one free download at on the hub. But the thing is, Office 2019 is compatible with Windows 10. So if you have Windows 7, for instance, that won't do it, right? So, well, just to make it easier for you, I just said, okay, you can use any diagramming tool. Like it could be Draw.io because this is free, right? Or it could be Visio. But the bottom line is that you have to have a diagram that shows the conversation flow, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yelena, this is Rita. I have a question.
Okay, sure.
Can you go over one more time when I know the last session you went over the calculation. You added some calculation in it, and I really want to know if you can show it to us one more time and explain it, because for those who want to add calculation, like how do we go about doing that?
Sure. And I also want to thank you for watching the recording. Thank you so much. It really helps, you know. Okay, so now here it is. This one is a calculation, right? Estimate the BMI. I'm collecting the height and weight, and if I was going to write a paper, I would write that the assumption is you're gonna put your height in inches and you're gonna put your weight in pounds. I'm not giving you a choice of the metric system. So now what I'm doing is in here. So if the chatbot recognizes, you see this, it's picking up the weight that was entered. This is just the formula. So let me click here. This is just the formula to calculate the body mass index. I took it from the internet. I'm taking the weight, multiplying by 703, and this is I'm dividing it by height squared. And here the idea is if this number is between 18.5 and 0, right, then this is a message that gets displayed. But the problem is I want to show what the actual value of the BMI is, right? So here I'm taking the number from my input, right, to do the calculation. So I have to put a bracket like this because I'm grabbing my numbers from the input. See, that's the weight, whatever was entered, and height. But in order to see the actual value, you have to use this bracket. This is a syntax, okay? And here, what it's gonna do is it will pull the number, right, from the input, and it will do this math for me, right? And it will show it as part of the sentence right here, okay? And of course, you don't want to display the same words all the time, so I just picked it, the variation, okay? But this is how I do the calculation here. So here I use the result as a criteria, right, to display the response. And then here I want to show what the actual value is. So that's the reason you need this bracket here. But for all of this to work, this is important. You have to have the number entity enabled, because what I'm doing in here is that I'm trying to grab the number from user's input. See this? I'm trying to pick up the number in the user's input. And how do I pick up a number? This is a system entity. So because earlier to read the email from the input, I had to create the pattern entity because there is no system entity called email. Okay? Here, on the other hand, there is a system entity. So I had to go in here and I had to do this first. I had to turn on the number. See this? So basically what I'm doing here is that I'm trying to read the numbers from the input. And the number can also be the written. Like, for example, I can spell 100 in words, or I can write the actual number 100. Okay? So it's trying to pick up the number from the input. I mean, does it make sense? Does it make sense?
It does.
Yes. So basically, when you do the value, when you're trying to display the actual value, you have to have the bracket and the question mark. And there, when I had my pattern entity, I had to have the dot literal. That's how you read this. Yeah, and if you guys want to beat me, there is something that I have not tried. I have not tried using arrays, but that would be nice if you could get it to work. But before you mess with this, before you try it, make sure that you back up your work, okay? Before you try something fancy, you want to back up the work, okay? Because I don't want you to mess up, you know. You see what I mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the calculation, if you could do this, this is a big plus, because the whole idea is that your chatbot should be reading the input. It should be some kind of like displaying users' input somewhere, right? That's the whole point. And you want to discuss about the limitations, perhaps. Here, in this case, I'm not storing the results. In reality, sometimes you want to come back next week and compare your current reading with your last week reading, something like that, right? Then I would also want to discuss how I could integrate other applications to enhance this chatbot, right? So just think about it. One of the applications could extract information from the documents. Maybe I could upload some documents that have information about the blood pressure, so that I could answer more advanced questions from my patients, right? Well, something like that. Or how could I incorporate the tone analyzer tool? Well, something like that. Well, because maybe when you enter in your blood pressure reading, you could be making a typo because, well, if your blood pressure is over 200, for instance, you're not going to be smiling at the same time, right? So I need some kind of way to detect if you're actually not feeling well. Maybe you made a typo when you entered the reading. Well, something like that, right? Or maybe you entered your high reading twice instead of the systolic and diastolic blood pressure, so it could be user error, and you want to catch those things, right? Well, that's another assumption. You kind of like relying that the information that was entered is correct, okay? Well, I could make it up. You have to think outside the box here. Just make a story. And well, one thing that would help you is kind of like use your own personality. You're not Yelena, you know what I'm saying? When you do those types of projects, you really have to put your personality in it, and then it will work. Well, just be creative. Just think about something that was not done in the classroom, right? Is there anything you can do that Yelena did not do? You know, once you meet the basic requirements, right? And basic requirement is a B, right? Once you meet that, you make a backup, and then you try to go a little bit beyond, but you have to make a backup so that in worst case scenario, you have a draft that you can submit with the basic requirements met, right? And I showed you how to do the backup of the file, right? Because I had people who got too ambitious and then they ended up breaking the chatbot. So before you go in that direction, you want to have a backup, okay? Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. And I would like to see your questions, definitely. And I need to look up for an example with a counter. Yeah, this is a good one, and I'm so glad somebody brought it up, where you can count, and after perhaps 5 attempts, you quit, right? Yeah, that's a good one. I need to explore it. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if we have more questions. So do you think in some way you can beat me with this? Well, another way you could impress me, you can impress the professor as well, is that if you try to do an experiment that I showed during the last session, and it's also a good way to engage your family members a little bit, because I can run your chatbot a few times. I get an idea of what you have been doing in your grad school, right? And that might be the only time and the only part of the course where your family member is actually allowed to help you. The only thing they're allowed to help you with is to run your chatbot for a few times just to collect the statistics. Remember, I showed you how to do the assistance. Here it is, right? And this assistance, they have a link in here, and you can give them this link, and they can run your chatbot. And after that, you would need to go to so see that this is mine. I can go in here, then there is an improve tab, and it will show you the history of conversations. Well, I didn't do anything this week, so I had to do the past 2 weeks to see what I was doing last week, and you could actually see the whole history of conversations, and then you can dive in. See that you can dive in and you can see how your input was recognized by the chatbot, and if anything was not recognized as expected, then you want to fix it, right? Like for example, I could open the conversation, and if I said my blood pressure is 115, and then if the bot answered that this is too high, right? Then we have a problem, right? Because the blood pressure in theory should be below 120, right? 120 over 80. So if it's 115, it's excellent blood pressure, right? You don't want it to be below 90, but this is an excellent blood pressure. So if the response is that it's not normal blood pressure, right? Well, this is actually asking about the weight, but in general, if you enter 115 blood pressure and if the response is not expected, then it means that something is wrong with your chatbot and you can go in and fix it. Then let your team member, let your family member play again and see if the issue is actually addressed. Because you can look at the scissors for each one, you can look at the a classification. Like for instance here, I entered the 115 and it's reading the number in the input. See this? So basically for each of the conversation, it's gonna show what it read from the user's input. But this is only done if you deploy the chatbot or if you created the link. So again, this is an opportunity to involve your friends and your family members in your project, is to ask them to run the chatbot. Because in the paper, where it asks you, you have a question on how would you train a chatbot. This is a perfect answer to ask your friends to run it and then go in here and adjust the classification. This is an excellent answer to this question, right? This is one way. You want to monitor this log, right? Because your family maybe ask the same question different. Like for example, I say BMI, they can say the body mass index or something else that I have not thought about. And you can add the vocabulary of the board, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
But for this, in order to do this experiment, you have to have your first draft of the chatbot ready 2 days before the assignment is due. Because you have to give the opportunity to play with this, right? And you have to collect some data. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is just will add value. If you do something like this, it will add a lot of value to your paper, right? And you will see why. You will get better understanding of what actually going on behind the scene as you run in the chatbot. And see here, you will know which intents are the top intents, what the user actually needs, what the user actually expects when later around with the application. Like today, we're looking at the email. So maybe emailing is an important component, right? What does the user use the most? The BMI part of the blood pressure? Well, things like that. All right. So that kind of like gives you some areas where your bot needs improvement and you're building the vocabulary, so to speak. See this entity, you can also see the different values that were entered. Like here, right? Explain the topic, which topic? See this? That explain thing, right? It has the topic and well, the topic entity rather has a BMI and the blood pressure values. And you can see how much each one gets hit, right? I hope it makes sense. And I hope we have more questions. I love questions.
Elena, can you show how to enable and disable the condition?
Okay. So here it is. This is the skills. And this is my chatbot. Okay, let's go to the node. Okay, so here is, let's just look at the email me. I'm gonna go to customize, and here, multiple responses, you have to turn it on if you want to. Oh wait, this is a different responses to the same input, sorry. This is a multiple responses to the same input. This is a slot. But what are you talking? Are you talking about the?
I think it's a handler, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, the handler. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to
I
have a
think
slot. Yes,
conditioner.
yes. So what you have to do is you have to turn on the slots right here. I have my slot turned on, and then, well, you just have to do this: manage handlers, right? And you have to add a new handler. And in here, for instance, when the bot recognizes an intent, right? An intent could be goodbye, right? It could enter something here, and then it can do something, right? Well, when I enter goodbye, here I'm gonna tell how to respond, right? So that's the whole idea. Let me cancel it. Discard. Yep. So basically, yeah, that's what the handler
Go
is.
back to the handler.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if you click on that circle thing,
Well,
yeah, what is,
yes.
oh, that's not the condition, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, this one, okay, if the bot recognizes, so this tells it's a trigger. It tells me what actually triggers this handler to be executed. And what triggers in this to be executed is the identification of the explained intent. So here it is. Well, let me show you where I actually did it. And very important, whenever you change something, you have to test it, and you have to test more than one scenario. Oops, that's not blood. It's in here. Explain BMI. See this here? I have two handlers, right? Oh, come on. Okay, so I have two handlers, and if you look at this here, manage handlers, I have two, and then, oops. Okay, here. So the first one is triggered by the goodbye intent. So when the chatbot, when this recognizes the goodbye intent, it's gonna do this. When it's recognizing the explain intent, it will do this. But again, it should be recognizing it while it's prompting you to enter the weight. So it's asking you to enter the weight, but instead you put explain. So this is when this handler is gonna fire, okay? This handler is gonna fire when the explain intent is identified while you're asked for the information, okay? This is what the basically happening, and then I can click on this and it will show me more details, what to do. Respond with, oh, did I just close this? Well, come on. Yep, so here it's gonna tell me what to do. When not found, so okay. Oh wait, this is a slot. I'm looking at the slot. I should be looking at my handlers in here. So suppose that it recognized the explain. This is what I'm doing here. This is the response, right? And then here it's gonna go back. Prompt again means that I want to return. I want to ask the same question to enter the weight again. Or I can skip the current slot and move on to the next slot, or I can move to response, which is what I'm doing in one of the handlers here, over here, in the goodbye. Well, this is what I'm doing, but I'm doing more in here. I want to go to the response, but take a look what else I'm doing. I'm setting the dummy variables. And to do this, see this? It looked like this initially, right? To set the variables in the handler, you have to click here and you have to do this open context editor, and then you set this. Those are the variables, right? Those are the context variables where you store the height and weight that you would read from the user input. And well, I decided to put the dummy value -1, and then I'm checking if the value is -1, it means that the user intended to quit, and I go straight to the goodbye. There's more than one way to do this, okay? There's more than one way. And well, see this here. I'm wondering if there is a context editor here. Well, because the whole idea is that you want to oh, okay, and you were asking about the conditional responses earlier, right? This is the conditional responses in here. So I'm gonna scroll down. This is a conditional responses, but what you had to do is you had to enable them first. So I go to customize, and I had to turn it on. I had to turn on this thing here. Yeah, different response. Oh, this is different responses to the same input. But I had to enable, yes, I have to enable the conditional responses here. So what I'm doing is that I'm checking if the bot recognizes this, then this is how I want to respond, right? If it recognizes this is what I want to do. in here. This is what I'm doing. Well, and the jump is
Click on
optional.
the circle over there, right next
Huh?
to the trash, the recycle bin.
Where? Here, this will delete.
No, the other one, the circle, right?
Okay. And, oops, sorry. The jump may or may not be there, okay? The jump may or may not be there. Jesus, respond with, yep.
Is
This
that
is-
where you enable the condition?
What do you mean by condition?
Go a little bit up and there were the three dots right next, yeah, right there.
Oh,
That's not
this is the context editor. So here, if you wanted to set the variable or something, you can do it. Here, you could add additional variables if you want to. If you were doing something else. This is a context. This is where you could set the context variables. But I'll tell you the truth. Instead of doing all of this multiplication each time, I tried to add a variable and I could not get it to work. So I just left it like this for now. Okay, but this is a context. This is not a condition. But what condition did you mean? I'm trying to understand the question.
I think when you were going through last like a minute, I saw the condition, enable condition menu, but then I don't know where it is now. Just go just a little bit up. Okay, if you click on the manage right there by the sys number.
Oh, sorry. Here?
No. Okay, so close this screen, close this one. The circle thing right next to required. Go all the way to the right.
Is this one?
Yeah, click on that, yeah. Do you have the right there, the three dots on the top, right? Yeah. That is enable condition. So you are enabling this condition then?
Ah, okay. Okay. So basically, it's like this. Look, you're trying to respond. Oh, here you can respond different based on what's entered. Like for instance, I did not enter the valid height, but based on something else that I entered, right? Yeah, perhaps I could have entered something else, right? Yeah. So basically, this is checking for the height, and the height is the number is not found in the input, but maybe there is something else that was found in the input, right? So based on what is found in the input, I could still respond differently, right? Or I could do what I could do is, well, I'm wondering if I could use this. I could use this to somehow get the counter. I'm wondering if I could use this somehow to have a counter, and perhaps if this is my fifth attempt answering incorrectly, do that. You see what I'm saying? I'm wondering if I could use something along this line. If I count how many times you answered the question incorrectly, and if the counter is greater than a certain number, then do this. That's one example when you would use it, for instance. Well, this slot is required, but seriously, you can do the conditional responses based on some other criteria. I have not done it in here because, well, of course, it's impossible to do everything, right? So if you get this to work, you're going beyond what is given to you, right? But yes, there should be a way to respond differently. Like, for example, if this is my second time answering the question incorrectly, I could put a different response, right? So then I have to have some kind of like a counter, and that I'll be checking in there. So respond differently based on the attempt. Well, this is excellent idea, and I should play around and see if I could.
Yelena, can you click on customize really quick?
Here?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Oh, scroll down, is that it? Just those two? Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, sure. It was a condition for the slot.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I want to thank you for your observation because I believe that might be the new functionality, one of the new ones. Because I admit that I did not see it before that, but I mean, this is one reason why I like students who ask questions because we learn something together. There could be something that was not there before, and it's also an opportunity to, learn from each other, right?
and can you explain information on the topic, why that one has so many layers underneath it?
Oh yeah, excellent. Well, basically, this is a folder, and the folder kind of allows me to group some notes together. For example, what these two notes have in common is an explanation on the topic, right? So whenever they explain entities code, I want to be explaining either BMI or the blood pressure, so that's what they have in common.
Okay,
Yes, it's my way to collapse this.
gotcha. Okay,
Yep, and you can specify something different. You can specify some property in here, something that you want to happen for both nodes, right? And you can track if they have children. Well, the thing is,
right.
a lot going on behind the scene.
Mm.
Yes, and the more you play around with this, the more you feel that you have stuff to learn.
And then I just got one more. How did you get the picture in the box?
Picture what?
How did you get the picture, like the smiley face? How did you get that in the box?
Well, what you have to do is you have to put the link in here. This is,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
let's see if we have something with an image. Well, the thing is, if you have a web page with an image, you right click and you get the image URL.
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Thank you.
So it will only take a URL.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You have to put the image URL. It has to be public also. It cannot be on your work intranet, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
This is one of the editions. I think it was added something like in the spring. Before that, this was not possible. This was not possible before that. It's one of the enhancements. So we decided to throw it into assignment. Of course, it's fun, right? You have different types of responses. The images, the text, and the options, right? And then the pause, because sometimes when it's showing a lot of information, you want to show, and then you want to wait for a few seconds and show next part. Yeah. So we want to explore pause. I'm not using it here. Well, it's an opportunity for you to try stuff, right? And the more you try, the more you feel that you have stuff to learn. Believe me. Yeah. Okay. Well, I love questions. And also, it really tells me that, the last demo was actually useful and that we had people who, in fact, watched it. And it's also based on the questions that I received. They were all excellent questions. So I really admire students who ask questions. So you get brownie points, at least. You get brownie points. Yeah, do we have more questions?
I don't see more question.
Or is there? Yeah. Anything that?
Someone is speaking. Who is speaking?
I don't know. I was going to say maybe Linesh has something to add based on his observation from helping students. Anything that he may have observed in the discussions or anything that could be.
Well, I haven't seen much. I think what was discussed in this Q&A was really good. I think really quality questions.
Yeah.
Well, I think this experience will improve our next semester. We can do this very digested walkthrough, which like we present the material, but then students can watch it on their own passes, which is very convenient that they can stop and resume as they can, which is more useful that, let's say, in real time. And when we do this meeting, actually real time, like right now, they are just to go more in deep and ask questions. And I think that is the way we are going to proceed. I see this more useful.
And
Anyway, I want to hear from everyone. There is place in the classroom. You can share your experience, your recommendation, and so on and on and on. The semester went so fast. I can't believe this is the last week and we have to grade everything. And remember, there is no chance for extension. This is not capricious administrative staff. This is a bold that is academic policy, which has to do with tuition reimbursement, and we have to follow this rule. There is no extension beyond the semester. During the semester, the instructor, we have been flexible as possible to still make the intense class, because you understand if you cannot catch in certain period of time, there is no way you can catch up in this intense class. But at the end of the semester, there is a really no chance for extension. And I hope everyone understands that.
So, Professor, it's due Sunday night?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have, 3 days to grade everything and wrap up and final grade, which is worse than what you have to do in 3 weeks, don't you think? Yeah, that's the rule. Yeah.
yeah, 72 hours, and the clock starts on Sunday midnight.
Yes.
I mean, it has always been like this, yeah.
Yeah, that's nothing. And you guys, you are at the end of the program already. You know about this. I'm not talking about anything.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do you all teach the capstone as well?
I'm not teaching the capstone. Capstone is professor. I'm managing the program. I don't have much time for teaching. You see, I'm teaching this class together with another professor because actually I have my main duty are to oversee the whole curriculum of the program, the consistency of the curricula, the flow of the material from course to course, any update which we need to make every single semester because the software is changing or some new topic are appearing which are very important to introduce. So I'm not teaching capstone. But the two instructors who are teaching the capstone, they are really the top and the most excellent, because usually who I hire to teach the capstone are the most experienced with all type of professional, broad experience. They can guide you in any topic of interest you want to do data analytic project. Yeah. It's Professor McKibbe and Professor Steve Cannon. These are the two professors who are going to teach the capstone project.
Okay, thank you.
I see another question. You don't have to, guys, integrate you don't have to actually integrate the chatbot with other services for the assignment, but you have to imagine that you were doing it and you have to explain what you would have done. Okay, you don't actually need to do it, but you have to discuss what you would have done. Okay?
Then I get it.
Does it make sense, Nikit? That was your question, right? Well, yeah. So
I see more question here.
Yeah, that was a question about.
Okay. I see.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything else, guys? Well, if not more, thank you for attending. Keep working as hard as you have been doing the whole semester, and it will pay off later on. I know some of you at this point in this course is too much in this course, but it's just the topic. It's not that we put more content, that it's just the type of topic which embrace too many different directions. But keep in mind that you can come back in the course content after the course is over, and you have for 4-month access to the course material and see whatever, and overview whatever you haven't got the chance to go in deep. And don't hesitate. My main recommendation to everyone is to go to Watson Studio and explore at least 2 or 3 different tutorials which are there, a notebook, Python notebook with different problems, and try to work in any direction which is of your interest. This is the true data science platform. And of course, we didn't have enough time because it's 12-week course. You don't get chance for more. Just on your own time, go to Watson Studio and explore at least 2 or 3 different Python notebook and tutorial which are there.
Yeah, so we're talking about the community. There is a community page where you can actually, there is an option to save a notebook to your project, right, on your account, and then you can play around.
Mm-hmm. So if no more, which I don't see more, I don't want to keep you. Of course, if you have other questions, you can post in the classroom. Just wishing you a nice evening and stay warm. Don't get sick.
Well, thank you. And thanks, Elena. This was excellent work for Q&A.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, okay. No, that's not a question. Okay.
What question?
No, that's comment.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and we need to end the recording.